The moment she hit send, her phone buzzed again. Same message, different number. A name she didn't recognize. And then, headlights appeared outside her window. Hi, family. Before we start, can you please take a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel to help us grow? We appreciate your subscription and support. Now, let's continue. Isla Monroe froze, the glow from her phone painting her face in the dark. She blinked, squinting at the name on the screen. Lorenzo Kane. The text bubble sat there, green and mocking, with her own words inside. If he doesn't stop acting like a mob boss, I swear I'll scream. It was supposed to go to Riley, her best friend, the one who'd been complaining all week about her toxic boyfriend. Isla had been teasing, half joking, fingers flying across the keyboard, until autocorrect decided to betray her and the wrong number turned out to be someone real. Someone who texted back. The reply came 3 dots at a time. You should be careful what you swear on, Isla Monroe. Her breath caught. How did he know her name? A chill slid down her spine as she moved toward the window, parting the curtain with shaking fingers. Outside, the quiet suburban street she'd always trusted looked wrong. A sleek black SUV idled across the road, engine humming low, another one turning slowly into her driveway. Headlights off, but their silhouettes were there, men stepping out in perfect sync. Her pulse roared in her ears. No, 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 no. She grabbed her phone, typing frantically. Sorry, wrong number. The message failed to deliver. The signal bars disappeared. No service. And then came a knock. One, solid, deliberate. Not her neighbor's kind of knock. Not a delivery man's either. It sounded like a decision. Her cat darted under the couch as Isla backed away, eyes darting around her living room. Her house wasn't big. A rented single-floor home tucked in a quiet corner of Ravenwell City, a place she'd picked for peace. Now peace was a stranger. Another knock. Harder this time. Her voice trembled. Who's there? No answer. Just the creak of the porch boards. She could see a shadow through the frosted glass. Broad shoulders, a figure standing perfectly still. She clutched her phone like a weapon, even though it was useless now. Maybe she could call the police from her laptop. Maybe. The lights went out. Every bulb in the house. Every hum of electricity. Silence fell, so thick it pressed against her chest. Okay, Isla, she whispered to herself. This is not happening. You're dreaming. It's fine. The front door handle turned. Miss Monroe, a voice low, calm, too smooth to belong to a random stranger. We're not here to hurt you, but you need to come with us. Her knees weakened. She stumbled back, shaking her head. Go away. I'm calling the cops. You can't, the man said quietly. Your signal's been cut. Don't make this harder. And then she saw it, the small red light blinking on a man's collar. An earpiece. He wasn't alone. From the corner of her window, movement, 2 more men circling the house. Black suits, earpieces, calm precision. Who are you? She shouted, trying to sound braver than she felt. The first man's gaze flicked toward her shadow behind the curtain. We work for Mr. Kane. Her heart stopped. Mr. Kane? Lorenzo Kane? He nodded once. I don't know him. That's not what he said. Before she could reply, headlights flashed again, a different car this time, gliding to a stop at the edge of her driveway. Sleeker, black paint that drank up the night. The kind of car people didn't just own, they earned. The back door opened. A figure stepped out. He didn't hurry. He didn't need to. Even from a distance, she could feel the weight of him. Tall, dressed in a dark coat, the faint glow of a cigarette lighting his jawline. His presence bent the air around him. Lorenzo Kane. She didn't need an introduction. Every rumor, every headline, every whispered name in Ravenwell City, it all fit him. The man the police couldn't touch. The man whose rivals disappeared quietly, as if erased. The man whose name she'd just accidentally texted like a joke. Her phone buzzed again, somehow, with no service. One message. Come outside, Isla. Her mouth went dry. She didn't move. Couldn't. He took another drag from his cigarette, then crushed it under his shoe. You've got 30 seconds before I come in. The voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Something in her, maybe curiosity, maybe survival, pushed her forward. She opened the door just enough to see him clearly for the first time. His eyes found hers instantly, dark, steady, unreadable. He looked nothing like she expected. No gold chains, no tattoos screaming danger. Just control. The kind that lived in silence. "Do you always send death threats to strangers?" he asked, tone low but laced with irony. Her voice broke. "It wasn't meant for you." He tilted his head. "But it reached me, and that means it's mine now." She blinked. "What does that even mean?" Lorenzo stepped closer, the faint scent of smoke and expensive leather following him. "It means you said something careless in a city where words cost lives." She forced herself to look him in the eye. "Then take me to jail, I guess. Because I don't owe you anything." For a moment, he just stared at her, as if studying a problem no one else had solved before. Then, to her surprise, he smiled. It wasn't kind, but wasn't cruel either. It was intrigued. "Brave," he murmured. "Or stupid. Haven't decided which yet." He turned slightly, signaling one of his men. "Bring the car around. She's coming with us." "Wait, what?" He met her eyes again. "You want to stay here? With people watching your every move because you texted me?" She swallowed. "You're threatening me. I'm offering protection." His tone didn't waver. "You can hate me later. For now, get in the car." And in that moment, surrounded by strangers, lights flashing in the dark, Isla realized this wasn't some misunderstanding. It was a warning. A single wrong text had cracked open a door into a world she was never meant to see, and Lorenzo Kane was holding it open, waiting for her to step through. Against every instinct screaming run, she took one shaky breath and stepped outside. The door closed behind her. The car door shut with a soft thud that sounded more final than any slammed gate could. Isla's fingers twisted in her lap as the vehicle rolled down Ravenwell's silent streets, the city lights slicing through the tinted windows in flashes of white and red. She'd imagined danger before, in movies, in books, in the whispered warnings people threw around after midnight. But this wasn't fiction. This was the sound of leather seats creaking beneath her, of men who didn't speak, of the faint static from earpieces whispering orders she wasn't supposed to hear. Lorenzo Kane sat beside her, not across, beside. His presence filled the space like gravity, invisible but inescapable. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. The man driving glanced at her once in the mirror, then immediately looked away, as if meeting her eyes might break some unspoken rule. She stared out the window, trying to keep her breathing steady. "So, kidnapping people is your thing?" she said finally, voice cracking despite the attempt at sarcasm. He didn't even look at her. "You weren't kidnapped. You were escorted, right? Because that sounds so much better." Silence. Only the hum of the engine. She shifted in her seat. "Where are you taking me?" He turned his head slightly, eyes unreadable. "Somewhere safer than your house. My house was perfectly safe before you sent men to it. Your house was being watched long before that text." Isla. Her pulse spiked. "Watched? By who?" Lorenzo's gaze flicked to the window, jaw tight. "That's what I'm trying to find out." She blinked. "You think someone's after me?" He didn't answer right away, just adjusted his cufflinks, an absent practice motion, before saying, "Someone used your number to contact me last week. The text you sent tonight just confirmed my suspicion." Suspicion of what? He turned to her fully this time, and she wished he hadn't. His eyes were sharp enough to slice through every word she hadn't said yet. "That you're either involved with my enemies, or you're their bait." Her heart stuttered. "Bait? I don't even know who your enemies are." "That's the problem," he murmured. "You shouldn't have been on their radar at all." The car slowed, turning off the main road onto a long, tree-lined path. It was quieter here, too quiet. Street lights faded into darkness until the only glow came from the headlights slicing through the mist. "Where are we?" she whispered. "Outside the city." "Why?" "Because if anyone's tracking you, they'll lose the signal by now." Her skin prickled. "You sound like a movie villain." A small, humorless smile touched his lips. Movies wish they could afford the truth. The car stopped before a wrought iron gate guarded by two men who looked like they'd been carved out of stone. It swung open automatically, and they drove in. The estate that appeared out of the fog wasn't glamorous. Not a palace. Not shining glass and marble. It was fortified. Thick walls, dim lights, quiet power. The kind of place where secrets slept easily because no one dared awake them. When the car halted, Lorenzo stepped out first. Isla hesitated, clutching her phone, dead, still useless, before following. The gravel crunched under her boots, echoing louder than it should have. He led her inside, past a set of steel-reinforced doors that closed with a low hiss. The interior was simple but heavy with intent. Dark wood, leather, clean lines, no excess. Everything had a purpose. A man approached, sharp in a gray suit, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Kane." Lorenzo nodded. "Raphael." Raphael's eyes flicked to Isla, then back to his boss. "She's the girl. The one who texted me," Lorenzo said flatly. Raphael raised a brow. "That's what we're calling it now." Lorenzo gave him a look that silenced the smirk before it could form. "Track her number. I want to know who rerouted it." "Yes, sir." Raphael moved away, already pulling a tablet from his jacket. Isla folded her arms. "This is insane. You think someone rerouted my phone? I can barely update my apps." He turned to her again, slower this time, his tone softer but no less heavy. "Someone used you, Isla, whether you realize it or not." She shook her head. "Used me for what? I'm a graphic designer, not some secret agent." "Then you're the perfect cover," he said simply. Her laugh came out shaky. "You really believe that?" He didn't answer. Instead, he walked toward a long table at the center of the room and poured himself a drink. His movements were deliberate, the kind that told her he was a man who'd learned long ago that control was everything. She watched him quietly, still standing by the door like a misplaced puzzle piece in someone else's game. "You don't seem scared," he said finally, without turning. "I am scared," she said. "I'm just too tired to show it." That made him pause. He looked over his shoulder, eyes dark but curious. "You talk too freely for someone who should be terrified. Maybe I'm too stupid to know when to shut up." For the first time, he almost smiled. "Almost. Or maybe you're the first person in this city who's not pretending with me." The room fell silent again. The air between them thickened, stretched. There was something in his gaze now that wasn't suspicion. It was study. Like she was a riddle he hadn't expected to find interesting. "Sit down," he said after a moment. "Why?" "Because if you keep standing there shaking, I'll think you're planning to run." She hesitated, then moved to a chair across from him. "I don't run. I just walk very fast in the opposite direction." That earned a quiet exhale. Not quite laughter, but close enough to make her realize she'd surprised him. Lorenzo set his glass down and leaned forward, elbows resting on the table. "Until I know who sent that message before you, you're staying here." Her jaw dropped. "Here? In this place?" "Yes. With you." His expression didn't change. "I don't trust anyone else to keep you alive right now." Her heart skipped. "That's comforting." He ignored the sarcasm. "Raphael will set you up in a guest room. You'll have food, clothes, whatever you need. Don't touch anything that doesn't belong to you. Don't wander off. And don't lie to me again." "I didn't lie to you. You lied when you said you weren't scared." He stood then, tall enough to make her feel small but not powerless. "Get some rest, Isla. We'll talk in the morning." As he walked away, the weight of the night finally settled on her chest. She'd texted a stranger, and somehow ended up under his roof, a man people feared, obeyed, and never crossed. And yet, as his footsteps faded, a strange thought crept in. Beneath all that danger, there was something else about him, something broken, buried deep. She didn't know why she felt it, or why she cared. But one thing was certain: nothing about Lorenzo Kane was an accident. And now, neither was she. Sleep refused to come. Isla lay in the strange, heavy silence of the room they called a guest room, though nothing about it felt welcoming. The walls were bare, the air faintly metallic, too clean, too guarded. Even the bed seemed like it had been made for someone who didn't plan to dream. The lamp by the nightstand glowed a soft amber. Her phone sat beside it, still dead. Someone had left a note in neat handwriting on the dresser. "Breakfast at 7. Don't wander. RT." RT meant Rafael Torres, the one with the permanent scowl and knife-sharp voice. She exhaled, pushing a hand through her hair. This wasn't her life. She was supposed to wake up tomorrow, make coffee, complain to Riley about deadlines, design logos for faceless companies, and worry about rent. Not be locked inside the home of Ravenwell's most feared man. She closed her eyes again, but the sound of footsteps in the hallway pulled her upright. Soft, steady, familiar. She recognized the rhythm before she saw him. Lorenzo. Kane didn't knock when he entered. He simply opened the door as if the act of permission didn't exist in his world. He was wearing a dark sweater now, sleeves rolled, hair slightly tousled as if he hadn't slept either. "You should rest," he said. She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "Kind of hard when I'm being held hostage." His eyes flicked to the untouched tray of food by the door. "Eat something. You'll think clearer." "I think fine." He stepped closer, the light catching the faint scar along his jaw. "You think reckless." Her throat tightened. "You think control is the same as safety." That made him pause, just long enough for her to realize she'd hit something true. Lorenzo walked to the window, hands in his pockets, gazing at the dark stretch of land outside. "There's something you need to understand, Isla. What happened tonight wasn't a coincidence. That text, it was bait, and someone wanted me to take it." She frowned. "And you think I'm part of that? I think you're standing in the middle of something you don't see yet." She pushed off the bed, irritation flaring. "You're acting like this is some crime thriller. I'm a graphic designer, not an assassin. The scariest thing I've done is use Photoshop after midnight." He turned, his stare quiet but sharp. "Then maybe that's why they chose you." She opened her mouth, then shut it again. It didn't make sense, but his certainty was terrifying. Lorenzo moved closer, slow enough that she could hear the weight of each step on the wooden floor. "Someone rerouted your number through an encrypted server in the Lower East District. That's not random." She blinked. "You already traced it? I don't wait for other people to protect what's mine." "Yours?" she repeated, disbelief cracking her tone. "I'm not yours." He leaned slightly forward, voice a quiet thread. "You texted me. That makes you mine until I find out who used you." Her pulse jumped. That's insane." "Maybe," he said, straightening, "but insanity keeps me alive." The air between them tightened again, an invisible rope pulling at both of them. She hated that he looked calm, collected, completely in control, while her heart raced so fast it hurt. "I want to go home," she said finally. "You can't." "Why not?" "Because your home isn't safe. Not until I find out who's watching it." She crossed her arms. "So what? I just stay here? Hide behind your security?" His jaw flexed. "Not hide. Stay under protection. There's a difference. And what do I give you in return? Huh? Gratitude?" Silence. He studied her for a moment, then said something she didn't expect. "A deal." She blinked. "A deal." He nodded. "You help me find whoever used your number. You cooperate, stay inside, follow my rules. And when this is over, you walk away untouched. And if I don't," the corner of his mouth curved slightly, "then you'll make enemies without even knowing their names." Her stomach nodded. "That's not a deal. That's blackmail. It's survival." She turned away, pacing the small room. Every instinct screamed that this man was dangerous, not just to others, but to her sense of balance, her sense of self. Yet beneath that danger was something steady, something that made her want to believe he wouldn't hurt her. "Why are you even doing this?" she asked softly. "Why not just assume I'm innocent and let me go?" He looked at her like she just asked why storms fall or fires burn. "Because innocence doesn't keep people alive in my world." There was again that quiet finality, the kind that came from someone who'd seen too much and trusted too little. She sank back onto the bed, rubbing her temples. "You're impossible." "Efficient," he corrected. She lifted her gaze. "You talk like everything's business." "It is." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, maybe out of exhaustion, maybe out of the strange magnet pulling her closer to the man she should hate, she said, "Fine. I'll do your stupid deal. I'll stay. I'll help. But when this is over, I never want to see you again." Something flickered in his eyes. Not offense, not anger. Maybe disappointment. But it was gone before she could be sure. "Deal," he said quietly. He turned to leave, then hesitated at the door. "Raphael will bring you a laptop tomorrow. You'll review the messages we recovered from the rerouted server. If any of them look familiar, you tell me." "Got it," she muttered. He started to walk away, then added over his shoulder, "And Isla?" She looked up. "If you're going to hate me, at least do it while staying alive." The door clicked shut behind him. Isla sat there for a long time, staring at the closed door, her heartbeat echoing in the silence. She should have felt relief. She had her deal, her safety. But the only thing she felt was the echo of his voice, low and certain, wrapping around her like a promise she didn't ask for. Somewhere deep down, she knew it wasn't just survival that had made him keep her close. It was something else, something dangerous, something she wasn't ready to name. Outside, the fog rolled thicker across the estate, and far off, the sound of engines rumbled, faint but growing closer. Neither of them knew it yet, but the deal they'd just made had already drawn blood. Morning light crept across the blinds, slicing the room into strips of gold and gray. Isla blinked awake to the sound of distant footsteps, slow, steady, disciplined. Somewhere downstairs, a door closed with the quiet efficiency of someone used to moving unnoticed. For a few seconds, she forgot where she was. Then the memory hit like cold water. The text, the headlights, the deal. The man whose name she'd whispered to herself last night, as if saying it might make him less real. Lorenzo Kane. She dragged herself out of bed and looked around the room again. It wasn't lavish, but it had a certain order, as though every item had a purpose. A small stack of books sat on the table, titles on psychology and history. The faint scent of cedar lingered in the air. She found a note under the door. "Raphael will bring your breakfast. Lorenzo wants to speak after. Don't leave the room without escort." The word escort made her roll her eyes. She was a guest on paper, but she could feel the invisible bars. Every door in this place opened one way. There's a knock. 3 sharp taps. Raphael stepped in, tray in hand, wearing the same expression that probably scared half the city. "Morning," she muttered, brushing her hair back. "Eat," he said, setting the tray down. "Does everyone here talk in one-word commands?" He didn't reply. When she reached for the coffee, he finally spoke. "Lorenzo doesn't usually keep outsiders here." "Yeah, I figured. He doesn't seem like the open-door type." Raphael's jaw flexed. "You should understand something, Miss Monroe. When he says he'll protect you, he means it, even from yourself." That unsettled her. "From myself." He studied her for a second, then said quietly, "You don't see the danger yet. You think this is about a text. It's not." Before she could ask what he meant, he turned and left. The house, or whatever it was, felt too big for silence. When Lorenzo finally appeared, hours later, she was half convinced he'd forgotten about her. He didn't knock. He never did. He simply stepped into the doorway, dark eyes scanning her like he was cataloging every thought she might be hiding. "Raphael said you ate," he said. "Should I report that too?" She shot back. A faint smirk tugged at his mouth. "Only if you plan on skipping your next meal." She sighed, closing her laptop. "What do you want?" He gestured for her to follow. "Walk with me." They moved through the halls, clean lines, dark wood, wide windows overlooking the cliffs of Ravenwell's northern ridge. Below, the city looked like a sleeping beast, its skyline veiled in fog. Lorenzo led her into what looked like a greenhouse, glass walls thick with condensation. Rows of green vines climbed the steel beams. A single long table sat in the center. "You grow plants," she said, surprised. "Tomatoes," he corrected. "My mother started this. I keep alive." Something about that made him human in a way she hadn't expected. She wanted to ask more, but he spoke first. "I ran a search on your background. No criminal record, no debt, no red flags. But your name came up once, tied to a digital campaign for a shell company last year." Her brows furrowed. "What company?" He handed her a file. "Nexia Logistics. It's fake. Used by my rivals for money laundering." She blinked. I made their logo. It was a freelance gig." His gaze didn't waver. "You didn't know?" "Of course not. It was a job, some generic email, quick payment done. I didn't even meet anyone." He watched her quietly, as if measuring truth by her heartbeat. "Finally," he said, "then that's how they found you." "Found me?" "They used your connection as a backdoor. They hacked through your email and redirected that text to me." Her pulse quickened. "So it wasn't random. No. For a long moment, neither spoke. She stared down at her hands, feeling her stomach twist. She wasn't just unlucky, she'd been a target. What do they want from me? She whispered. Not you. Me, Lorenzo said softly. You were just the bridge. Then why keep me here? Because bridges collapse when you ignore them. There was again that tone, calm and cold, yet protective in its own twisted way. She looked up at him. You ever get tired of being cryptic? He almost smiled. Only when people stop asking good questions. Later, when she was alone, she found herself pacing near the window, watching the ocean crash against the rocks. She should have felt trapped, but instead, she felt strange comfort. Like danger was the only thing keeping her still. A soft knock pulled her back. Lorenzo again, this time without warning, holding 2 cups of coffee. I don't do small talk, he said. But Raphael told me you hate silence. She blinked, caught off guard. You brought coffee? He nodded, setting 1 cup in front of her. Black, no sugar. You hack my taste too? He leaned against the counter, eyes on her. Observation. She took a sip, more to avoid his gaze than anything. You're not what I expected. He raised an eyebrow. And what did you expect? Someone colder. He let out a soft breath, not quite a laugh. Cold is easy. Controlled is better. There was a quiet moment between them then. Not tense, not soft, just still. The kind of silence that carried weight. She set the cup down. You keep saying I'm not safe out there. How bad is it? Bad enough that I can't afford to let you walk away yet. She hesitated. Yet. He nodded once. Yet. Their eyes held. Something unspoken hanging between them. Fragile, but magnetic. Then, breaking the stillness, she said quietly, If this is a cage, it doesn't feel like one. Lorenzo's gaze darkened. That's the problem, Isla. The safest cages never do. He walked away then, leaving her with the faint scent of coffee and the echo of words that felt far too close to prophecy. Outside, Ravenwell's sky burned orange against the dark sea, beautiful, dangerous, and entirely untouchable. Just like him. By nightfall, the house no longer felt still. It breathed with movement, quiet footsteps, distant voices, the hum of engines outside. From the upstairs window, Isla could see the glow of security lights slicing through the fog. She pressed a hand against the cold glass, watching a pair of guards circle the perimeter. The sight should have made her feel safe. It didn't. Her mind replayed Lorenzo's words. The safest cages never do. It had been 3 days since their deal. 3 long days of tracing old emails, scanning messages, and feeling like a pawn in a game she didn't understand. Every time she thought she'd found a clue, Lorenzo's people told her it was another dead end. Still, she couldn't stop. Something in her refused to be useless. That evening, Raphael appeared at her door again. He wants to see you, he said simply. Now, Raphael nodded once. He doesn't like to wait. Lorenzo's office wasn't what she imagined. No marble, no polished glass, just dark oak shelves, a heavy desk scattered with papers, and the low hum of a single desk lamp. He didn't look up when she entered. His attention was fixed on a digital file open across his laptop screen. Sit, he said, voice calm but clipped. She obeyed, mostly because defying him never went well. What's going on? He turned the screen toward her. A face stared back, sharp eyes, smirk like a wound. This is Julian Voss, Lorenzo said. He's been moving quietly for months. We intercepted one of his shipments 2 weeks ago. He's been trying to get to me ever since. Okay, and what does that have to do with me? Lorenzo tapped a folder beside the image. Voss recently hired someone with a background in digital design and communications. Someone who used to work with you. Her heart skipped. Who? He slid a photo across the table. Isla froze. Riley, she whispered. Her best friend's smiling face stared up from the photo. The same Riley who'd been on the other end of the text that started all of this. That's impossible, she said, shaking her head. Riley wouldn't. She's not part of this. Lorenzo's voice softened, but only slightly. People surprise us, especially when money or fear gets involved. No, Isla said, standing. You don't know her. She's not like that. She's the one you meant to text, he cut in. That stopped her cold. He rose from his chair, slow and measured, his shadow spilling across the floor. Voss knew that message would find me. He knew using a familiar number would make it believable. And now your best friend is working for him. So tell me, Isla, how much of this is coincidence? Her throat tightened. I don't know. He stepped closer, then started remembering. She took a shaky breath. We worked at the same firm 2 years ago. She quit suddenly, said she got a better offer. I never asked where. Lorenzo's gaze didn't waver. Did she ever mention someone named Marcus Heller? No. Who's that? Julian Voss's financial broker. He's the one who signed your freelance payment for Nexia Logistics. Her pulse thundered. Wait, are you saying? I'm saying your friend may have been the one who gave him your contact. Isla stepped back, as if the air itself had turned heavy. You're lying. If I were lying, you wouldn't be alive. That cold certainty again, not cruel, just absolute. She wanted to scream, to deny it, but the dots connected too easily. The old freelance gig. Riley's new job. The wrong number. Her best friend's name on a criminal payroll. Why are you telling me this? She asked finally, voice small. Because the longer you pretend you're not part of this, the easier you make it for him to use you again. That night, Isla sat by the window, the city lights flickering below. Her thoughts tangled until they made no sense at all. Riley couldn't have done this. The Riley she knew was clumsy, loud, always late. Not someone who worked for a man like Julian Voss. But then again, maybe she never really knew her. She heard footsteps again. Lorenzo. He didn't speak when he entered, just handed her a folder. What's this? Proof, he said. Read it. Inside were printed chat logs, payment confirmations, digital contracts, all linked to Riley James. Her name was there, in black and white, tied to Nexia Logistics and Marcus Heller. It felt like betrayal had taken shape on paper. She dropped the folder onto the table. I don't want to see this. You have to. I said I don't want to, she snapped, voice shaking. He didn't flinch. Then you'll keep being the only one pretending this isn't real. Tears stung her eyes. You think this is easy for me? You think I want to believe my best friend did this? Lorenzo's expression softened, just barely. No, but I think it's better to face pain on your feet than to die comfortable on your knees. The words hung there, heavier than silence. She turned away, hiding her face. He didn't move closer, didn't try to comfort her. But his presence, steady, quiet, unrelenting, felt like a strange kind of protection. Finally, she asked, what happens now? We draw her out, he said simply. If she's working for Voss, she'll make a move soon. And when she does, I'll be ready. And if you're wrong, he met her eyes. Then I'll owe you an apology. But I don't make mistakes twice. She studied him, trying to decide whether that was a warning or a promise. Either way, the truth was closing in, and part of her wasn't sure she wanted to know what it looked like. Hours later, long after he left, Isla stared at her reflection in the glass. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who'd accidentally sent a text 5 days ago. She wasn't terrified anymore. She was furious. If Riley had betrayed her, she would find out herself. Not as Lorenzo's pawn, but as Isla Monroe, who refused to stay trapped forever. In the distance, thunder rolled over Ravenwell City. Somewhere in that sound was the promise of reckoning, and Isla wasn't sure who'd survive at first. It started with a vibration, soft, steady, almost innocent. Isla looked up from the pile of papers she'd been pretending to read. Her phone, which had been lifeless for days, glowed from the desk. A message blinked on the screen from an unsaved number. I know where you are. Don't trust him. Her breath caught. The profile icon was blank, but the way the words curved, the way the letters spaced, she knew that typing pattern by heart. Riley. She stared at the message for what felt like minutes before forcing herself to breathe again. Every instinct screamed to reply, but the memory of Lorenzo's voice cut through. Someone used you once. Don't make it easy for them to do again. Still, her fingers hovered above the keyboard. Don't trust him. What if Riley was telling the truth? What if the proof Lorenzo showed her had been planted, just like that first text? A knock at the door shattered the thought. Raphael. Again. Lorenzo wants you in the East Wing, he said. She swallowed. Is it about the message? He raised a brow. You already saw it. Her heart dropped. You're tracking my phone? Every device inside this property, he said flatly. It's protocol. Protocol, she repeated bitterly. You mean control? Raphael's face didn't move. He's waiting. The east wing wasn't like the rest of the house. Fewer windows, more shadows, a subtle hum from somewhere underground, servers. Maybe. Lorenzo stood at the end of the corridor, phone in one hand, eyes locked on a glowing screen. When she entered, he didn't look up. You got a message. I saw. From Riley. Yes. He finally lifted his gaze, calm, unreadable, that unnerving stillness that always made her feel seen and stripped at the same time. And you didn't reply. I wanted to, but you didn't, he said. Good. She frowned. You sound disappointed. Temptation is a weakness, he said, walking closer. Resisting it isn't. She's my friend, Lorenzo. He stopped inches away. She was. Now she's leverage. The way he said it, cold, practical, made something inside her crack. She's a person, not a pawn. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. So are you. And if you forget that, you'll end up like her, caught between sides you can't survive. Her anger flared before fear could stop it. You think you're the only one who's ever been betrayed? Newsflash, not everyone solves their pain by controlling everyone else. For a heartbeat, silence. Then, instead of the explosion she expected, he smiled, faint, rueful, almost sad. Control isn't how I survive, he said quietly. It's how I make sure no one else dies because of me. The words hung between them, heavy with something she couldn't name. Regret? Loss. A truth buried too deep to explain. Before she could speak again, Raphael appeared in the doorway. We traced the message. It came from Sector 9, abandoned warehouses by the bay. Lorenzo's entire body shifted, like a machine snapping into command. Prepare a decoy team. Raphael hesitated. You think she'll show? She'll think she's rescuing her friend, Lorenzo said, glancing at Isla. And we'll make sure she feels safe enough to try. It took her a moment to realize what he meant. You're using me as bait. Not bait, he said. Proof. I'm not doing that. Yes, you are. Her voice rose. You can't force me. He stepped closer, tone quiet but razor sharp. If I could, I already would have. But I'm asking, because this is your chance to decide whose truth you believe. She stared at him, trembling. If Riley was innocent, this would betray her. If Lorenzo was right, refusing could get her killed. And beneath all that fear was something more dangerous. The way his voice softened when he said your chance. The way his eyes lingered just a little too long. She hated that she cared. Fine, she said finally. I'll do it. He nodded once, no victory in his expression, just that quiet focus again. Raphael will prep you. I'll be on comms. When he turned to leave, she grabbed his wrist without thinking. If this goes wrong. It won't, he said. How can you be so sure? He looked at her hand still gripping his arm, then back into her eyes. Because I don't lose people twice. He left her there, heartbeat colliding with the rhythm of the rain against the window. An hour later, Isla stood inside a black SUV, watching the ghostly outline of Ravenwell Bay draw closer. Abandoned warehouses stretched across the shoreline like broken ribs. The city lights didn't reach this far. Only the ocean's restless breath filled the night. Her earpiece crackled. Stay calm. We see you. Lorenzo's voice. Low, steady, threaded with authority. IT shouldn't have calmed her, but it did. The SUV stopped. Raphael opened the door. You going alone. Keep your phone on. Alone, she echoed. Great plan. Raphael's mouth twitched, the closest thing to humor she'd seen from him. He trusts you more than anyone. That didn't feel comforting. The warehouse door creaked open, dust swirling through the beam of her flashlight. Then, movement. A figure stepped out from the shadows. Riley. She looked thinner, paler, eyes darting like someone who'd been running for days. Isla, she whispered, voice shaking. You shouldn't have come. Why? Isla's voice cracked. You sent the message. I had to, Riley said. They're watching him. Lorenzo. He's not who you think. I know exactly who he is. No, Riley said urgently. He killed Marcus Heller. Isla froze. What? Riley took a step closer. He used me to get to Julian. I thought I was helping him clean up evidence, but Marcus found out. Lorenzo had him shot. Lorenzo said Julian killed Marcus, Isla murmured. Riley shook her head. He lies, Isla. He always lies. The earpiece buzzed softly. Lorenzo's voice, barely above a whisper. Step back. Don't believe her. Her chest tightened. Two voices, two truths, pulling her in opposite directions. Riley reached out. Please, we can leave. There's a safe house north of. A gunshot cracked through the air. Riley's words died on her lips. Isla screamed, dropping to the ground as chaos erupted. Men shouting, flashlights slicing through the dark. Hands pulled her back, strong, unyielding. Lorenzo. He dragged her behind a stack of crates, covering her as bullets tore through the metal walls. Stay down. Her voice broke. You said she'd be safe. She wasn't supposed to be here, he shouted back. For a few seconds, only the sound of gunfire and his heartbeat against her shoulder filled the air. Then silence, the kind that feels wrong. When he finally stood, his gun lowered, Riley was gone. So was whoever had shot her. All that remained was blood and the echo of betrayal. Later, back at the house, Isla sat on the edge of her bed, shaking. Lorenzo stood near the doorway, hands clenched, jaw tight. She's not dead, he said finally. We found tire tracks. Someone took her. Isla looked up, eyes glassy. Someone you didn't predict. He didn't reply. You think control keeps everyone safe, she said quietly. But the second something slips, you lose everything, don't you? He turned his face slightly, the mask cracking for the first time. Yes. Her voice softened. Then stop pretending you don't care. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for a fleeting moment, the danger between them didn't matter. What mattered was the way he said, almost to himself, that's the problem, Isla. I care too much. The morning came slow, heavy, and gray. Rain still tapped the windows like restless fingers. The world outside washed in silver light. Inside the mansion, the silence was thicker than air, the kind that hummed with tension no one dared name. Isla hadn't slept. She'd sat awake, replaying the gunshot in her head, every second of it echoing behind her ribs. That Riley's voice, that desperate, he's not who you think, wouldn't stop replaying. And Lorenzo's, I don't lose people twice. But he had. Again. When the knock came, it was soft but sure. She didn't need to ask who it was. Lorenzo stepped inside, still in the same black shirt from last night, sleeves rolled, collar undone. His eyes looked darker, colder, but underneath that, she could see the fatigue, the weight of control he wore like armor. You didn't rest, he said. She gave a bitter laugh. Neither did you. He moved closer, setting a cup of coffee beside her. Riley's alive. Her head snapped up. What? We found her tracker, signal 30 miles north. She's being moved. Someone wants her to stay hidden until I stop looking. Who? He hesitated. My brother. She blinked. You have a brother? Lorenzo nodded once. Had. Until I made him disappear. The room tilted. You're saying? He's alive, Lorenzo said quietly. And he wants me to pay for what I did. They sat opposite each other. Her in disbelief, him in that haunted calm. He didn't look like a man confessing. He looked like one reliving the dead. His name is Adrian, Lorenzo said. We built Ravenwell together. Same ambition, same hunger. But power doesn't share well between brothers. And Marcus Heller? She asked. Marcus was his partner, a lawyer who tried to expose our network. When Adrian turned on me, Marcus became collateral. He paused. Riley was the key witness to everything. Isla's heart pounded. So she was telling the truth? She was telling his truth, he said darkly. Not mine. Then what's yours, Lorenzo? For a moment, he just stared at her. Then, quietly, almost as if it hurt, I didn't kill Marcus, but I gave the order that led to his death. Her stomach twisted. That's the same thing. Yes. He met her eyes, unflinching. That's why I don't deserve forgiveness. She wanted to scream, to demand why he dragged her into this chaos, but the words stuck in her throat. Because the look in his eyes wasn't pride. It was guilt, raw and buried under too many years of silence. "Why tell me this now?" she whispered. "Because Riley's alive," he said, "and Adrian will use her against us both." "Us," she echoed. "There's no us, Lorenzo." He smiled faintly. "That's the lie we keep telling." By afternoon, Raphael entered with a tablet, eyes grim. "We intercepted a message from Adrian's network. They're planning a data leak, files from your security archives, voice logs, recordings." Lorenzo took the tablet, scrolling fast. His jaw tightened. "They have recordings of Isla." Her heart stopped. "What kind of recordings?" "The ones from our surveillance," Raphael said. "Audio from your private quarters." "What?" she whispered, voice cracking. "You recorded me?" Lorenzo froze. "For protection." "Don't," she snapped, standing up. "Don't insult me. That's not protection. That's possession. Isla, you watched me. Every move, every breath. And you think you're different from the people who hurt you." The look in his eyes shifted, storm meeting fire. "You think I like seeing you cry? You think I wanted to hear you whisper Riley's name in your sleep?" Her lips parted. "Then why keep it?" "Because I couldn't stop," he said, voice low, ragged. "Because every time you spoke, it reminded me what it felt like to be human again." Silence. The kind that burns more than any shout. Her anger softened. Not forgiveness, but recognition. He was broken in the places she understood too well. She turned away. "You should have told me." He stepped closer, his voice barely a whisper now. "If I told you everything, you'd run. And I can't lose you to him, too." Night came again, cloaked in thunder. Isla stood by the balcony, watching lightning split the horizon. Lorenzo was in the war room below, preparing for Adrian's move, but she couldn't stop hearing Riley's words. "He's not who you think." Maybe neither of them were. The storm rolled closer, and something flickered below. Movement near the gates, .2 figures at NO guards. Her pulse spiked. She grabbed her coat and slipped out quietly, heart hammering. The hallways were empty, the camera's red dots blinking like warnings. She ignored them. When she reached the garden, the rain hit in sheets, cold and fierce. The two figures came clearer now, Riley and a man tall. Black coat, eyes that mirrored Lorenzo's in shape, but not in soul. "Adrian." "Isla," Riley said, voice trembling. "We don't have much time." Adrian smiled, slow and deliberate. "So, you're the reason he finally bled again." She stared at him, soaked and shaking. "Why bring her here?" "To end the story he started," Adrian said. "And to show you the truth he never will." He tossed something onto the wet ground. A small drive, silver, glinting under the rainlight. "Everything you need is in there," he said. "Proof that he used you long before you met." Riley's eyes filled with tears. "It's true, Isla. You were part of his plan. He made me bring you into the network." Lightning flashed, and before Isla could move, another shot cracked through the night. Riley screamed. The drive felled at Adrian's gun, aimed straight at Isla. But then Lorenzo was there, out of nowhere. Out of breath. Out of patience. "Drop it, Adrian." "Always late to save them," Adrian said coldly. "Just like father." Lorenzo's voice broke for the first time. "Don't." Adrian's smile was bitter, almost tender. "You don't get to say that anymore." The thunder swallowed the next shot. Isla screamed as the world blurred. Rain, smoke, and the sound of one brother falling to his knees. When the haze cleared, Adrian was on the ground, blood pooling near his hand. Lorenzo stood over him, chest heaving, gun trembling. His eyes, full of something like pain and relief, found Isla's. "I warned you," he said softly. "Control keeps everyone alive." But even he didn't sound like he believed it anymore. Hours later, after the chaos settled, Isla sat beside him in the dim light of the war room. His hand was bleeding where the gun had kicked too hard. She cleaned it silently, the air between them thick with everything they couldn't undo. Finally, she said it, the truth she'd been holding. "You can't save people by breaking them." He didn't look up. "Then how do I save you?" "You don't," she whispered. "You let me choose." He turned to her then, eyes burning with something between surrender and longing. And for once, he didn't reach for control. He just let the silence answer. Morning came with no warmth. The storm had passed, but Ravenwell looked wounded, streets slick with rain, the skyline veiled in smoke. Inside the mansion, the tension had curdled into silence. Adrian's body was gone. Riley was under medical watch, unconscious. Lorenzo hadn't spoken to anyone since dawn. Isla found him in the study, staring out the window, shirt still stained at the cuffs. The glass reflected his face, hollow, unshaven, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "You didn't have to kill him," she said quietly. His voice was rough. "You didn't see his gun aimed at you. I saw yours aimed at him." He turned then, slow and heavy, as if her words weighed more than he could carry. "You think I wanted that?" "No," she said, "but you didn't stop it either." He looked away again, jaw tightening. "You sound like him." Maybe because he was right. That hit him harder than she expected. The silence stretched between them, sharp, unbearable. Then she said, "What's on the drive?" Lorenzo's head tilted. "You still have it?" She nodded, holding the small silver device in her palm. Riley dropped it before the gunfire. "I found it near the fountain." He reached for it, but she pulled back. "No, I'm done letting you decide what I should know." Their eyes locked, his dark and desperate, hers defiant. Finally, he stepped aside. "Then see for yourself." The laptop screen glowed against the dim room. Files opened one after another. Labeled Project Seraph, Acquisition Logs, Candidate 43. Isla clicked the last one. Her name appeared. She froze. Her image, ID photo, old resume, personal history, filled the screen. Notes scrolled beneath it. Target selected. Profile fits psychological model. Ideal for integration. Recruit via indirect digital contact. Her blood ran cold. "This isn't real," she whispered. Lorenzo's silence said otherwise. She turned to him slowly. "Tell me this isn't what it looks like." He didn't move, didn't blink. "I needed someone outside the network," he said finally. "Someone clean. Someone who could help me expose Adrian's buyers." "You were perfect, intelligent, unnoticed, careful." Her voice trembled. "You used me. I protected you. You manipulated me," she snapped. From the first text. He stepped closer, voice low but shaking. "That text wasn't meant for me, Isla. But once I saw your name, I realized fate had just handed me a way out of the war I started." "That's not fate," she said bitterly. "That's control dressed as destiny." He flinched. She'd hit the truth dead center. She stood abruptly, pacing. "So all this time, the house, the guards, the fear, it was never about protecting me. It was about protecting your plan." "Until it wasn't," he said quietly. "Don't." "I mean it," he said, stepping forward. "You changed it. All of it. I stopped seeing you as a tool the day you told me to stop hiding behind my empire. You don't believe me, I know, but you were the only thing that ever felt real in this entire goddamn life." Her throat tightened. She wanted to stay angry, to hold the fury that kept her safe, but his voice cracked on the word real, and it tore something inside her. "Do you hear yourself?" she whispered. "You think love fixes what you did." "No," he said, "but it's the only thing that made me regret it." She shook her head, tears spilling. "Regret doesn't undo manipulation." "I know," he said softly, "but maybe truth will." He reached for another file. This one labeled Adrian/Phase 2. Inside were encrypted documents, financial trails, and one video feed, timestamped months before they met. The footage flickered. Adrian and Marcus Heller in a dim room, speaking low. Then Riley walked in. "You sure she won't trace it back?" Adrian asked. Riley nodded. "She'll think she's texting me. I'll delete everything once he replies." Adrian smirked. "Then let's see how long it takes Lorenzo to notice he's being baited by an innocent girl." The recording ended. Isla's knees gave out. "So this whole time, both of you were tricked?" Lorenzo's voice was barely a whisper. "He made me the villain in your story before I even had a chance." "And you played the part perfectly," she said bitterly, "because I didn't know how else to survive." She stared at the drive, now feeling like the heaviest object in the world. "You could leak this," she said. "Expose the truth. End the war." "I could," he said, "but it would destroy Ravenwell and everyone who works for me. Thousands of lives. It's not just my empire anymore." She looked up at him, tired, hollow, angry, but still too human to hate fully. "So what will you choose?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, finally, If burning it is the price for peace, then I'll burn it. And he did. Without ceremony, without hesitation, he dropped the drive into the fireplace. The flames caught instantly, silver melting into orange. Isla watched it burn, part of her breaking and healing all at once. That was the proof, she said softly. Your redemption. He shook his head. No, that was my punishment. The firelight painted him gold and shadow, a man made of contradictions. Later, when the house was still and the world seemed quiet for the first time, Isla found him on the balcony, smoke curling from a half-burned cigar. She joined him wordlessly. You're leaving, he said, not looking at her. Yes, she said. I have to. He nodded once. Good. You should. She hesitated. That's it. He smiled faintly. If I ask you to stay, I'll ruin you again. And if I let you go, maybe I get to keep one good thing pure. She blinked back tears. I don't know how to hate you, Lorenzo. Then don't, he said. Just forget me. But she knew she never would. By morning, Isla was gone. A single note on his desk read, You built your world on control. I built mine on trust. Let's see which one survives longer. He folded the note carefully, placed it in his pocket, and stared out at Ravenwell's skyline, the city he'd once ruled. For the first time, Lorenzo De Luca wasn't the man in control, that he was just a man, watching the one person who'd ever seen him walk away. 6 months later, Ravenwell City had moved on. The papers wrote about new investors, new political scandals, new faces. The name Lorenzo De Luca had faded from headlines and whispers alike, like a ghost too dangerous to remember aloud. And Isla Monroe was just another woman starting over. Her new life fit neatly inside a small apartment above a bookstore on Westbourne Street. The air smelled like coffee and dust, the walls still bare except for a single framed photograph. A sunrise over water she'd taken the first week she'd left. Every morning she woke before dawn, brewed cheap coffee, opened her laptop, and worked on freelance design jobs. Nothing fancy, nothing dangerous, just normal, ordinary, safe. But peace, she was learning, came with its own kind of ache. That afternoon, she met Riley at a small cafe across town. Riley still walked with a slight limp, a souvenir from that night, but her laughter was the same, messy, loud, and too big for the space it filled. Therapy's helping, Riley said between sips. Still have nightmares, but less screaming. Isla smiled weakly. That's progress. You? I sleep, Isla said. Not well, but enough. Riley studied her for a long moment. You ever think about him? Isla's hands stilled on her cup. Every day, she admitted quietly. Riley nodded. He'd hate that. Why? Because he wanted you free, Riley said simply. Even if he didn't know how to give you that. Isla smiled sadly. Freedom's strange. It doesn't feel like flying. It feels like falling without anyone left to catch you. Riley reached across the table, squeezing her hand. You're stronger than you think, Is. Maybe, but strength didn't stop the memories. The way he'd looked at her that night by the fire. The quiet way he said, just forget me. That evening, Isla returned home, the city lights flickering below her window. She changed into her hoodie, opened her laptop, and checked her inbox. Client mails, receipts, one new message, no sender name. Just a subject line. Ravenwell still remembers. Her fingers hovered. Then she clicked. Inside was a single line of text. You told me control and trust can't coexist. You were wrong. L. Her heart stopped. Attached was a file, encrypted, labeled blueprint. She almost deleted it. Almost, but curiosity, that dangerous, traitorous thing, whispered otherwise. She opened it. The file contained architectural plans, not of a house or a building, but an underground structure. Coordinates, security routes, notes in handwriting she recognized instantly. Lorenzo's. At the bottom, one last message. If you ever want to know who took the rest of Adrian's network, follow this map. You'll find them where I couldn't. Her chest tightened. He's alive. Because if he weren't, the message wouldn't exist. She exhaled shakily, leaning back in her chair. He'd disappeared from the world, left everything behind. Yet here he was again, reaching through firewalls and silence like a ghost who refused to rest. Riley's voice echoed in her head. He wanted you free. But what if this was freedom, the kind that came with unfinished truth? For the next few days, Isla tried to ignore it. She buried herself in work, in errands, in pretending not to care. But the coordinates burned in her mind like a secret she couldn't unsee. By the fifth night, she gave in. She packed a bag, flashlight, phone, portable drive, and one thing she never thought she'd touch again: the silver pendant Lorenzo had given her before she left. It wasn't jewelry, not really. Inside, it held a small encrypted chip, her failsafe, he'd called it. Use it only if you ever need to find me, he'd said. She'd never planned to. Until now. The address led her to the outskirts of the city, an abandoned freight terminal overrun by weeds and shadows. Rusted signs warned no trespassing, but the gate was already open, swinging lazily in the wind. She stepped inside, heart pounding. The air smelled like old iron and rain. Her flashlight caught something on the ground, tire marks, recent, and then footprints. Someone had been here. She followed the trail, weaving between crates until she reached a door half hidden by ivy. It was old but reinforced. A keypad blinked red beside it. She froze. The code. Her mind went back to their first night in Ravenwell. The password he'd used on the study safe. 6-2-4-9. She typed it in. The light turned green. The door clicked open. Inside, the darkness wasn't empty. Screens glowed faintly from the far wall. Surveillance monitors, maps, data streams. A single chair faced them, empty. Then a voice. Didn't think you'd actually come. Her breath caught. Lorenzo stepped out of the shadows, the same black eyes, the same impossible calm, but leaner, rougher, like time had carved him thinner. Why? Was all she managed. Because they're not gone, he said. Adrian's network. Someone took control. Someone worse. She shook her head. You could have told me. I couldn't, he said. You deserved peace. And you? He smiled faintly. I deserved consequence. For a moment, they just looked at each other. 6 months of silence collapsing into one heartbeat. Tell me this isn't another plan, she whispered. It's not, he said. It's a choice. You can walk away now, Isla. Pretend none of this matters. Or you can help me finish what he started and end this for good. Her pulse trembled between fear and something dangerously close to hope. You still think I'll choose you? No, he said softly, but I think you'll choose the truth. And when she looked into his eyes, dark, tired, still holding that unbearable pull, she realized he was right. Because love wasn't what brought her back to him, that it was unfinished business. The underground base was colder than the world above, all metal and echo and hum. Somewhere between the concrete walls and the low flicker of lights, Isla felt the weight of what she'd stepped into. She followed Lorenzo through narrow corridors lined with servers and digital archives. The hum of machines blended with the steady rhythm of his boots. He moved with purpose, not the arrogance she once mistook for power, but the urgency of a man racing time. What are we looking for? She asked. The link, he said. The person who stepped into Adrian's place after his death. And you think it's someone from inside your network? I don't think, he said grimly. I know. They entered a control room filled with screens. One wall displayed real-time feeds, banks, shipments, encrypted messages, all connecting like spiderwebs. Lorenzo began typing fast, bypassing layers of firewalls Isla didn't even recognize. His face was pale under the monitor light. After Adrian's fall, he said, someone began rerouting our dormant accounts. Silent withdrawals, offshore transfers. It took me months to trace it. He paused. Until I found this. He pulled up a file. The sender's name flashed across the screen. Raphael Dunn. Isla froze. Raphael. Right under my nose, Lorenzo said bitterly. He was Adrian's contingency. Always watching me. Waiting for me to fall. He clicked to open another file. Security logs from that night. There, clear as day, was footage of Raphael in the surveillance room. Erasing data, redirecting alarms. He let Adrian in, Isla whispered. He's the reason Riley was found. Yes, Lorenzo said, and he's been running the network since. Suddenly, the screens glitched, flickering, static black. A voice came through the speakers, distorted but unmistakable. "Did you really think I'd let you walk in here alive, boss?" "Raphael." Lorenzo's hands tightened on the desk. "Where are you?" The voice laughed. "You always underestimated loyalty. You thought fear could hold a man forever. But fear fades, Lorenzo. Money doesn't." Isla looked around, heart hammering. "He's inside the system." "Not for long," Lorenzo muttered, typing faster. But then, alarms blared. The door locked automatically. Red lights flashed. "Lorenzo," Isla's voice cracked. "What's happening?" "He's triggering the fail-safe," Lorenzo said. "He's wiping everything. Data, servers, us included if we don't move." Smoke began seeping from the vents, the acrid scent of burning circuits. He grabbed Isla's wrist. "Come on." They ran. Down the corridor, through the haze, past metal doors that slammed shut one by one. The sound of distant explosions echoed through the tunnels. When they reached the final exit, Lorenzo slammed his palm on the keypad, denied. "Raphael locked us out," Isla said, coughing. No, Lorenzo turned to the wall panel, ripping open the wiring. He forgot who taught him the system. He connected 2 wires. Sparks flew, and the door hissed open just enough for her to squeeze through. "Go," he shouted. "What about you?" "I'll override from here. It'll close again in 30 seconds. "Go." "No," she said fiercely. "Not this time." Their eyes locked through the haze. Her face streaked with smoke and tears, his lit by the pulsing red lights. "Isla," he said softly, almost smiling. "If I make it out, I'll find you again. But if I don't say that. Then remember me as the man who tried to fix what he broke." Her chest ached. "You already did." And then she kissed him. Hard, desperate. Final, he tasted like ash and truth. When she pulled back, his hand lingered on her face just long enough to memorize it. Then he pushed her through the gap. "Go." The door sealed behind her. The explosion came seconds later. The shock wave threw her to the ground. The building roared, metal splitting, glass raining down like stars dying. When it stopped, there was only silence, the kind that felt too big to breathe in. She crawled back to the door, pounding against it. "Lorenzo! Lorenzo!" No answer, just the hiss of steam and falling debris. The world had burned him away. Days later, the news called it an electrical fire at a decommissioned freight terminal. No survivors identified. Isla didn't correct them. She sat by the water that evening, the same place she'd once taken that sunrise photo, the pendant warm in her hand. When she opened it, she found a folded microchip inside, something she'd never noticed before. She plugged it into her laptop. A single message played. "Underscore, if you're hearing this, it means I couldn't stop it. Don't look for me, Isla. But if you ever forget why I did all this, it wasn't for redemption. It was because you made me believe I could still be something better. Be free, and don't let anyone cage you again, not even memory." Underscore. Her tears fell soundlessly onto the keys. The file ended. The screen went dark. But outside, the sun broke through the cloud for the first time in days, soft and golden, washing the city in light. And somewhere in that light, Isla smiled. Not because she was healed, but because she was alive. Epilogue. 6 months later. A private island off the coast of Belize. A man with scars on his hands and shadows in his eyes stood at the edge of the dock, watching the sea. A fishing boat passed by. He lifted a lighter, flicked it once. The flame caught for only a second before the wind stole it away. Behind him, a woman's voice said, "Mr. Rossi, the shipment's ready." He nodded, eyes still on the horizon. "Good. Let go." The woman turned back toward the docks. And for a moment, just a moment, Lorenzo de Luca let himself look toward the sunset and whisper, "Be free, Isla."